Get ready to be jolted out of the ordinary and into a world where conversations are charged with intensity and facts. The Lightning Strike Talk Radio with your host, Mohammed Fahim, broadcasting live from the heart of the city on Chicago's Progressive Talk Radio, WCPT 820 AM. Welcome to a radio show that charges through the airwaves with an electricity like no other. Here's your host, Mohammed Fahim.
Good morning, folks. Welcome to the Lightning Strike. We got our full team over here today on WCPT 820 AM. And we got Reed Bible joining us from Henderson, Nevada. Good morning, Reed.
Morning.
We got Chris Hilbert joining us from Euless, Texas. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning.
And we got Mike Patino joining us from Chicago. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning.
And we got Dr. Sheila White, the producer, director, writer, back on the team after completing a movie in Joliet. Good morning, Sheila.
Good morning, Chicago and the world. Good morning.
Okay, and we have Brennan Bond also with us. Good morning, Brennan.
Good morning.
Morning, Brennan.
Okay, so let's get started, folks. A couple of days back was May Day, right? It's not a holiday, not a hashtag. It was more of a warning shot because the American worker didn't get the dignity that they were supposed to have, right? They had to fight for it. And now what's happening in our country is the fighting continues, and we are still not where we need to be. They did not get the dignity handed to them, folks. They took it. In 1886, going back all the way, if you remember what happened in 1886, if you don't, let me remind you, okay? In 1886, something happened in Chicago. And you have to understand history and make sure that we don't repeat history over here with our current president and the current administration that is there in Washington. So in 1886, workers didn't politely request the 8-hour day. They shut the system down until the system listened. That's not history, that's a blueprint. So every benefit you enjoy today, weekends, overtime, safety standards, came from confrontation, folks, not cooperation. And we need to let that sink in. Because somewhere along the way, we were sold a different story. That if corporations win, workers win. That if the market grows, prosperity trickles down. Well, the market grew. Corporate profits exploded. And the worker, still waiting. Just look at what happened with Spirit Airlines yesterday. 15,000 people were let go because of what? Corporate greed or corporate mismanagement. There was a vice president of Spirit Airline on Facebook that he put up a post saying, I had a salary of $250,000 and I had corporate perks and privileges all gone. Just think about it. That's not an economic model. That's a rigged game. Productivity goes up, wages stay flat, CEOs cash out, workers cash checks that don't stretch or that are rubber checks. And now, just as families are barely holding the line, here comes the next hit. War. The escalating conflict with Iran is not just some abstract foreign policy debate, folks. It's showing up at the gas pump, at the grocery store, on your utility bill. And then we have, I don't want to use 5-letter words, but it starts with an I and ends with a T, as our Secretary of Defense, who managed to just rename it the Department of War before all this mess started. So war started, which is not a war, according to the president. Oil spikes, prices follow, paychecks don't. That is the math. One disruption in the global oil artery, and suddenly Working families are subsidizing geopolitical decisions they had no say in. Think about that. You don't you don't vote on war strategy. You don't sit in those rooms, but you pay the bill every single time. And when flawed policy meets global instability, guess who absorbs the shock? Not the hedge funds, not the defense contractors, the worker, always the worker, which brings us back to May Day, which was celebrated 2 days back. Because this is where labor has a choice, folks. You can either stay comfortable, stay reactive, stay behind the curve, or remember who you are. Labor is not a special interest. Labor is the national interest. Without labor, nothing moves. No goods, no services, no economy. You're not a line item on a spreadsheet. You are the engine. We are the engine. So act like it. When inflation rises, don't ask for relief. Demand protection. When policy fails, don't adjust. Organize. When the economy shifts, don't adapt quietly. Shape it loudly. Because here's the truth no one wants to say out loud, folks. If labor doesn't fight for the worker, no one will. Not politicians chasing headlines, not corporations choosing margins. No one. And history is very clear about what happens next. When workers stand alone, they get squeezed. When workers stand together, they set the terms. So this May Day, I did not celebrate, folks. Remember that everything you have was fought for. Remember that everything you're losing can be taken back. And remember this, power doesn't disappear, it shifts. The only question is, who is holding it now? And this is what we try to do on the lightning strike. We take the power back. And on that note, let me bring in the rest of the team. Good morning, team.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Okay. So any comments on my rant this morning?
Well said.
Yeah.
Perfect. Excellent. It should be published and leafleted and thrown from the helicopters as they're flying
Okay.
over all the major cities. So super kudos, Mohammed. So
Look,
well done. Thank you.
Chris, and that is, people don't realize it. Man, we have the power.
We have the power. We just
They
got to
don't.
use it.
Okay. They act like they have all the power. And then, we have people like Jared Kushner. Who the heck is Jared Kushner? What
Right.
is his official title? Did anyone elect him? This guy has set up a consulting company or whatever, hedge fund, whatever, affinity partners. 99% of that is funded by the Saudis
Right.
and UAE. And you have him negotiating to end the war in Iran, while the Saudi prince is telling him quietly, no, I need to keep that war going. Something is wrong, folks. Something is wrong. I'd also like to welcome our guest today. We do have someone joining us. Chris, let's see who our guest is. Andrew Herrera. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning, guys.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I think let's dive right into why you are here. Mike, take it.
Good morning. It's so important what you're doing, the work you're doing with HB 2723. Can you just tell us just a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with this and what you hope to accomplish?
Yeah, absolutely. So HB 2723 is the Illinois Human Rights Advocacy Protection Act, and it would repeal the anti-BDS law that passed in Illinois in 2015. And I can explain that a little bit more, but the way I got involved in this is I've been working as a grassroots activist in Chicago since about 2014, and in various capacities. And then just a few years ago, was fortunate enough to be able to make it during the pandemic. Decided to, I got furloughed, which is the best thing that ever happened to me because I left the corporate job and I went over to I decided to take a gamble and try to go full time on activist work. And so since then, I've been able to, do some work, some policy work, communications work in the advocacy realm, and that led to the opportunity to work with the Illinois Coalition for Human Rights and the Justice Coalition on putting together and running the Illinois Human Rights Advocacy Protection Act. And so that's something that we've been working on since last January.
Excellent, excellent. Currently we're in the process of getting this bill passed. There's a process called a witness slip. Could you explain that a little bit to people that might not understand what witness slips are?
Yeah, so every time a bill goes for any kind of hearing, there's the opportunity to submit witness slips. And so, in the olden days, there used to be physical slips of paper that you would use to go basically sign up to testify in the hearing. In the modern era, you've got digital witness slips, and so you can either you basically any member of the public can slip to show their opposition or support to a policy. They can do a written slip, so they can actually submit a written testimony, or they can do oral testimony, which means that there'll be a few folks that actually testify in person. And so that becomes, on most bills, you'll see, 10, 20, 30 witness slips. And on this bill, we saw, I believe it was north of 11,000 witness slips in support, and 8,000 against. So, it's something that it's very typical on this issue that we've seen extremely organized opposition. Now, and also there's a bit of, you're really only supposed to submit a witness slip if you're from the state. But the other side casts a pretty expansive net. We're seeing folks slipping from LA and from all over. And so I think it's really indicative of the level of support and public interest in this policy and this policy question that we saw so much engagement. And the thing that I would say is that on this issue in particular, like most people don't know what BDS is the boycott, divest, and sanction movement. And it's just a very wonky issue. It's a very complicated thing to understand. And so the fact that so many people are engaging with it, I think is really it's a turning of the page that more people are aware of this issue, the importance of this issue, and are out there to engage on it.
So, Andrew, we have got Dan Biss would be joining us in the second hour. And if you want to stay back and ask him a couple of questions, feel free to stay on the rest of the show. Very important. Why are we doing this? What is in it for us as a country, not just as a state?
Sorry, can you clarify what this is?
Well, the anti-BDS thing that the bill that we are discussing right now.
Yeah. So the complicated thing about talking about this bill is the double negative. We're doing an anti-BDS repeal, right?
Right.
So just to be clear, there's this thing. So just quickly for your listeners, boycott, divest, and sanction is a non-violent protest movement that started, I think, in 2004, and it was modeled after the successful protest movement against South African apartheid, which started in 1959. And it was a way for the world to show and communicate to the leaders of South Africa that, the situation over there was not tolerable, right? And so people were choosing to refuse to do business with South African companies. And so similarly, with Israel, the Israeli occupation of the West Bank and Gaza, and just the treatment of the Palestinians in the apartheid conditions, which is, of course, since then devolved into genocidal conditions. This has been a way for people to exert pressure on companies to say, hey, if you do business in the occupied territories, we don't want to do business with you. And that movement scored some pretty substantial victories. There were some large companies that started to listen because they were seeing the business exposure to bad publicity, basically from doing business in these places where these horrible things are being done to people, as outweighing any potential business benefits. And so just kind of a neutral business decision that was and that's the entire purpose of the Montgomery bus boycott, the boycotts in South Africa. Like it's a very rich tradition. The Boston Tea Party was a boycott, so all of these kinds of things is a very rich American tradition. And so in 2014, the Israeli government set up a new foreign ministry that was explicitly dedicated to passing anti-BDS policies at the state level. And the reason it's so, they did this across the world, but they really focused on the United States as the major consumer market in the world, right? So our consumers have more leverage than any other consumers in the world. And so they decided they had been trying to do this at the federal level, and it kept getting kind of dismissed as like obviously unconstitutional and un-American. And so it was something that wasn't even being considered. And unfortunately, Illinois became the test case where they were able to actually pass an anti-BDS policy in 2015 after Bibi Netanyahu put in 25 million dollars into this campaign, which is incredible. If you just think about it, just stop there. The fact that a foreign government publicly, right? This is not a secret thing. They publicly announced that they're going to invest $25 million in affecting state level policy in the United States. Like that by itself should automatically lead everyone to automatically oppose this thing. And there's no way that should be allowed.
Well, thank you so much for explaining that, Andrew. Yeah, a lot of people don't understand this. That's why I had you go a little bit deeper into this. Folks, that is Andrew Herrera with the Herrera Consultants joining us. I guess if you have any questions for Andrew or on this topic, feel free to call in. The number to call in. Mike, do you remember the number?
No.
Oh, come on, Mike. Okay, 773-774-8585 is the new number. You can also text us or call us on the old number, 773-763-9278 or WCPT. You're tuned into the Lightning Strike. We come every Sunday morning from 8 to 10 on WCPT. And worldwide on heartlandsignal.com, you're able to listen to us on the internet. And then you can go back to our website later on, TLS Chicago or TLSradio.com, and check out all the shows, and on our YouTube channel, you can go from there. So, Andrew, thank you so much for explaining this. I do remember that Dan Biss initially supported that thing, and now that Dan is the how do I say it? I mean, he won the primaries in the 9th district, and he has publicly avowed that he was wrong the first time around. So that is a good thing. We need to hold our elected representatives accountable, and we need to keep their feet to the fire. Every 2 years they come back, they ask for our vote. We need to find out who is actually their paymasters, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, let's see if Chris or Reed or Dr. White have any questions for you. We got about 3 minutes to finish off this segment.
I just think this is a very important conversation that needs to stay up front. More people need to be aware of this issue because human rights and things that are affecting not only just people in America, but just around the world, not only just within our state. I think we just need to keep our hand on the pulse of this situation. And like Mohammed said, keep our elected officials accountable. You can't backtrack. You know what you stand for in the beginning, and you shouldn't just switch tracks just because. It shouldn't be that easy. We should hold people accountable. So thank you so much, Andrew, for bringing this to light for us today.
Well, let's see. Reed has raised his hand. Reed, go ahead.
Andrew, thank you for being on the show this morning. What you're doing is fantastic work, a true patriotic type of thing to do. And I would like to get a feel from you as to what you're sensing from the state legislature as to who is in favor of the Human Rights Advocacy Protection Act and who seems to be against it. Are you seeing, is there a bipartisan support brewing, or is it just one party as opposed to another?
Well, it certainly has not been bipartisan. The only folks who've jumped on are Democrats, although there has been some interest from Republicans, and I think a growing interest. And it's something that, this is an issue where you can bring up a lot of polling, and all the polling is moving in the direction of, hey, your base is moving here. You should move in this direction before before you look like you're the laggard. And I think from a partisan or from a Democratic perspective, there is I'd say there's a growing constituency, particularly in the House, that are moving toward this. I think there's a lot of understanding from other folks who've been engaged in civil rights issues of the importance of this. And then also a lot of moderates are concerned about, and I'll say really quickly, I know we're running out of time, but the really important thing to know about this is that in 2015, the law that they passed is so bad that it created a pension review board, which basically has the power to force the pensions, the 5 major pensions in Illinois, to divest from any funds that they say, violated this law. But they're the ones who are able to decide that. And the law actually creates a carve out for fiduciary responsibility, which means that they don't have to act with regard to the health of the pension overall. So they could cause unlimited damage to the pensions under this law, and in fact would be mandated to do so under the law. And then there's 7 members, the 4 political appointees are all extremely Zionist appointees, some of whom were said the emails were FOIA'd that showed that they were saying that the point of this law was not to attack or confront anti-Semitism. The point of this law was to basically reaffirm Israeli sovereignty over Judea and Samaria, aka all of the occupied territories. And
Well,
so
Mike has got his hand raised up, and we'll finish off with Mike's question. Go ahead, Mike.
Yes, I was wondering if you knew. My understanding is there's only like 34 state Democratic Party state reps that have signed on to this bill so far. I think there's like 68 or something in the state. That's not even half. Do you know what the number is now?
So it's actually less than that. I believe it's about 22, and we have like 13 in the Senate. So over between the both chambers, we got about 34, 35. And what I will say is that co-sponsorship is not always indicative of support. So I think our support is much closer to half. You need 60 votes to pass something in the House, and we've got 78 Democratic members. I'd say that I believe that if this vote were called on the floor today, it would pass, because I just don't think there's enough people that are going to want to be on the record opposing this. And what I will say too is that even the people who supported this, who passed it, and who are still in the assembly, almost all of them that I've spoken to have said that this is a bad policy. Everyone recognizes this was a bad policy. Everyone recognizes it was a mistake to have passed this in 2015. But when you've got somebody like Michael Sachs making phone calls to any member on the floor who supports it, there's an incredible amount of pressure being put on anybody who was actually opposing this. They're supporting our bill.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks.
So, Andrew, one quick question before I let you go. I do remember hearing something about Michael Frerichs, our state treasurer, putting some money into the Israeli bonds or something like that. Do you have any recollection of that?
Well, it's a quite a hefty last question. What I will say quickly is that these are 2 different issues. The treasurer has been under a lot of pressure for buying what we call Israeli war bonds, or these foreign bonds. So they're basically direct transfers of capital to the Israeli government. And his argument in defense is saying, well, I have a fiduciary responsibility to get the greatest return possible, blind to all the considerations. So obviously we disagree with that in terms of his assessment there and the values-based investing. But what's important here is that the treasurer is saying this about fiduciary responsibility, and that same argument, if it were to carry over, would mandate that the legislature repeal the 2015 law, because it actually carves out fiduciary responsibility, and so the folks don't even have to act with that in mind. And so they're doing irresponsible things, in forcing the pension to punish companies that are doing the moral thing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, folks. That is Andrew Herrera with Herrera Consulting. What other kind of work do you do, Andrew, before I let you go? 30 seconds. Pitch your company.
So it's Herrera Strategy, and we do work with a lot of labor partners. So we do a lot of work advocating for low-wage, non-union workers, folks who are not part of a union yet, and also pro-immigration work, which really chimes with that as well. So we were very active during Midway Blitz, doing a lot of communications work with our partners at the Resurrection Project and a few others, just to make sure that folks knew their rights. And we continue that work, as unfortunately that situation remains ongoing.
And that would be Herrera.com, or what's your website? How do people find you?
Herrera, Herrera, strategy.com.
HerreraStrategy.com, folks. Andrew Herrera with the Herrera Strategies with us this morning, discussing what's happening in our country and in our state. Thank you so much, Andrew. And if you want to stay on and be a fly on the wall when Dan Biss comes in, feel free to jump back in if you want to at the 9 o'clock hour, or you can stay on right now. So let's come back to what we were going to be talking about today. So we have Jesse Rojo would be joining us shortly. We are expecting Jesse to jump in with a very important topic, and this is the early intervention that we are looking at and the funding for that, which the state is cutting. There's a funding lag of, I believe, $164 million or something, and we are dragging our feet on this, folks. Let's look at it. We are spending what? $2 billion plus a day on a war that no one wants in a country or in the world for that matter. And we don't have enough money in our country, in our state, to pay for basic essentials for us, the citizens. Reed, I want your take on this because when Pete Hegseth was called into the, in front of the House and the Senate, did you see this guy dancing around, giving answers? No answers.
Yeah, it was belligerent. And it was his job to answer the questions of our duly elected representatives. We want to know the answers to these questions. I don't want smart, I was going to say something else, impertinent responses to a question from, say, a Ro Khanna when he asks, what is this costing the American people? And he says that, well, what does it cost to keep them from having a nuclear weapon? That's rhetoric. I don't want to hear his rhetoric. I want to hear the actual costs of this. And this kind of money, imagine just one day's worth of expenses carrying out this war, if that were put into the early intervention programs in Illinois. It could probably pay for early intervention in pretty much all 50 states. So it's just as far as a morality document, if you look at our budget, and I think it is, it just really speaks poorly of our priorities.
One of the things that I am unable to understand, why are we not fighting back against it? I mean, I say we, our elected representatives, what is keeping them from just falling over like 9 pins anytime that Trump comes in with his bowling ball?
Yeah, I really hope that there's going to be a major turnover in the Congress come November. They'll take office in January if that happens. And then I think we're going to start seeing some impeachment proceedings underway, and well-deserved ones on the part of about 4 or 5 different members of the cabinet, including Robert F. Kennedy, the Secretary of Commerce, and the Secretary of Defense. I'm gonna call it the Department of Defense because that's what it is. We're not supposed to be a country dedicated to warfare. I'm not gonna call it the Department of War.
Yeah, I don't think anyone should. John Thune and all of those people, they should be dragged in and asked questions once the administration hopefully changes. And my thing again with all these hearings, Reed, are we gaining anything? Is anything coming out, tangible things that all of this hearings in Congress and the Senate, it looks more like theater to me.
Well, I think there is some benefit to it, Mohammed, in that just like what happened in Hungary a couple of weeks ago, the opposition party there the media focused on the corruption. They kept saying it, corruption, corruption, corruption. And this is what it's costing you. They're putting their hands in your pockets to pay off all these oligarchs that they've got, these contractors and so on. And so if the Democrats, since they don't have that much power right now, keep the focus on, and hopefully the media, on the corruption, eventually it's going to bring a change come November.
I was hoping for Jesse to join us. He hasn't joined us so far. Let's continue the conversation. And folks, if you want to join in, have your say, feel free to call in 773-774-8585 or 773-763-9278 are the numbers to reach us. This is the Lightning Strike. We come every Sunday morning from 8 to 10 on WCPT. And I'm so glad that we have a station and a medium that we can talk about these things. And let me bring Jesse in, and Jesse will be joining us shortly. He's tuning in at the moment. Good morning, Jesse. let's see.
Hopefully.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
There we go. I'm well. I'm
Good
well,
morning.
Mohammed. I
Okay.
think I was in the wrong waiting room for a second there. But hey, here we are. Thank everybody for having me. How's everyone doing?
Okay. I was like, okay, he was supposed to join in a little bit before. I wonder what happened. But
I left you waiting. Very ironic considering we're talking about early intervention, a program where too many families are waiting for it. So look at that. The irony already clear.
So Jesse, real quick, if you could introduce yourself in 15 seconds to our panel over here and our listeners worldwide.
Of course. Well, my name is Jesse Rojo. I'm a policy advocate, and among many jobs I do, I'm proudly the Field Family and Community Engagement Lead for Raising Illinois, the largest advocacy coalition we have in the state of Illinois focused on early childhood issues. Everything from home visiting and perinatal support to economic security and early intervention, which we'll focus on today. Essentially, the hope of the coalition is to bring families and providers together, having them at the center of this work so that we can actually live up to the promise from Governor Pritzker 5 or 6 years ago, making this the best state to raise a young child.
Well, Bessie, I think we got your guest also who joined us just now. And if you can introduce her, and then we will continue the conversation. There's a lot of things, very important topics that we have to cover today, folks. So stay with us. If you could introduce your guest, please.
Of course, Mohammed. So now I'm very happy to introduce our speaker, Gaye. She is a coworker of mine who actually has a story with early intervention. Like I said, the goal of Raise Illinois is to put parents and providers at the center because this is a radical idea. Those who are living the system, those who are seeing how broken the system are the ones who can fix it. So speaking of somebody who understands what changes we need, Gaye, you want to introduce yourself and maybe share your early intervention story?
Of course. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jesse. And thank you so much for having me, Mohammed, and everybody else. Like Jesse said, my name is Gaye Durju, and I'm a first-time mom to a twinless twin preemie who has been in early intervention for 7 months now. I was fortunate enough not to experience any delays because we applied for early intervention before my baby left the neonatal intensive care unit, the NICU. And services started right after a 1 month cuddle break for us when he came home. And beginning that early with my micro preemie made an enormous difference to our family. We began physical therapy in September of 2025 and recently added occupational therapy after his 6 month adjusted evaluation. And the impact has been truly life-changing for me and my family and my kid. What stands out the most is how critical it is not to delay early intervention, because in the beginning, our focus was on survival, not on milestones. And with the gap between his adjusted age and chronological age and the significant early health concerns, it would have been so easy for us to forget about the development and it fall behind unnoticed. And starting services that early ensured that we had a professional guiding us and reminding us what to look for, helping us on track. And that support has been essential, especially when thinking about daycare readiness and navigating that uncertainty coming from the hospital and then at home alone with your baby. And without early access to early intervention, I believe we would have felt lost and reactive instead of confident and proactive. So early intervention didn't just support my child's development, it stabilized and empowered our entire family. So we must make sure every child and family that needs early intervention like we did is able to access these supports.
Thank you, Gaye. Jesse, you described this in our conversation before the show last week as a quiet crisis. But when thousands of infants are missing critical development windows, why isn't this being treated as a statewide emergency?
No, I mean, we honestly just heard a beautiful statement not too long ago on this radio. Our budget reflects our morals, right? It reflects our values. Well, guess what? Our values are reflected by underinvesting in early childhood. But what's even worse is that it's not just that we are underinvesting in it, we're not paying attention to it. Early childhood is literally the most important time of a person's life. The first 3 years is something like 80% of brain development. And yet most people are not aware of early intervention. Most people aren't aware of how valuable early childhood education is. And that's reflected on our politicians not being aware of it either. And again, that's really what we hope to do with our Babies Can't Wait campaign, which you can find out more about at raiseillinois.org. Essentially, we're hoping to collect stories just like Gaye's so that we can share it with people, because what we've seen is that while the world is on fire, there's actually some capacity to bring people together around early intervention. Genuinely, as somebody who has worked in Springfield, has worked in DC, has worked across the aisle, I have noticed something truly beautiful when I talk to people about early intervention. No one really opposes it. They simply just don't know about it. So it's really, the hope of Raise Illinois to bring people like Gaia down to Springfield on what is it, May 13th, I think, for our Early Childhood Advocacy Day, where we're actually going to have filled out postcards that we'll share with politicians and legislators and be like, hey, this is a story of somebody who needs this program and is not getting it. Or this is a story of somebody like Gaia who received this program and it fundamentally changed her life and her child's life for the better. And by sharing those stories, we are really able to build those relationships. And I believe, or at least I pray, that down the line, that'll allow us to have more attention on this issue and therefore more actual investment, which again will reflect.
So, Jesse, my understanding is the law guarantees early intervention services. Yet families are waiting weeks or even months. At what point does this become a failure of compliance and not just capacity?
I mean, no, right now we have over 3,000 families waiting for this program. Whether it's compliance, whether it's investment, whatever it is, I think it's clear that we must do better, period. But yes, Mohammed, you are 100% correct. Like literally, this is one of the few, I think maybe the only legally entitlement that we have. You as a parent must receive services within 30 days of being given a referral. Unfortunately, though, that's simply not happening. Again, over 3,000 children right now are waiting for this service. That is more than twice the amount of children who are waiting since 2022. And that's both because we have more children needing it, because more families are aware of it, but also, as we are seeing so often, we have less providers because we're recruiting less, and unfortunately, we're retaining less because we're simply underinvesting in the program and leaving these providers doing this work simply out of the passion that they hold. They're not making enough money. I mean, very often they're losing money, and it's just not fair.
So why has the system been allowed to underpay the very professionals it depends on? Jesse, we are spending $2 billion plus a day on a war. Where are our priorities, man, in this country now?
No, of course. And Guy, don't you hesitate to bring in your voice either. All right. You share anything you want to say, but I'll take a first stab at the question. And really, I think the fact that we don't have our priorities aligned here, the fact that we have people publicly saying, and this is good, we have people publicly saying that we want to make Illinois the best state to raise a young child. That's step one. That's a good first step. But now we have to actually back that up with financial investment. And I understand that's not easy. Like genuinely, guys, it's so easy for me to say, we need 168 million for early intervention. We need 40 million right now for early intervention. It's easy to say that. It's not exactly an easy thing to do considering how difficult our economy is. Maybe, wink, wink, because of how we're spending money elsewhere. So again, maybe a radical idea. Let's spend money at home. Let's invest in our families and let's invest in our children specifically because these babies simply can't wait.
Yeah, and I would just add from a parent perspective, it feels urgent every single day. If I was the one making the decisions, I would invest whatever money we needed. Because when you're living in it, there's nothing quiet about it. You're just watching your child try to catch up during the most critical window of their life, and you know that time matters. And I think part of why it's not treated like an emergency is because of these delays happening behind closed doors in homes and in not doctors' offices and not in ways that are always visible and not to people who are always visible, to politicians and people in power who can make the decisions. But for families like mine, the stakes are immediate and real, and the cost of waiting is something we carry every day. So it honestly is an emergency for everybody on an individual level, which is something indescribable.
Okay, so let's talk about accountability. Who is responsible for the fact that delays have nearly doubled since 2022?
I would say elected
and
officials.
Name names. Feel free to name names as long as you've got the facts to back it up, okay?
Lightning strike. You make me live up to that name for your radio show now. I like it. With that said, though, I'm not a divisive man, so I'll name one big thing instead. The elected officials not being aware of what our communities need. Genuinely, I'm not trying to start any fights here. I'm not trying to say this person hates babies, because that's what I literally mean here, guys. Nobody actually, most people don't actually hate babies, right? Genuinely, when I go to Springfield, when we bring the voice of Gaia down to Springfield on May 13th, Early Childhood Advocacy Day, we're not going to hear people say, oh, no, this program doesn't matter. Oh, no, this isn't necessary. Oh, no, babies, they can wait. No, People understand that babies can't wait. People understand we need to invest in early intervention. It is just simply a challenge of finances. It is a challenge of our budget having to prioritize babies, having to invest not just in early intervention, but also early childhood education in general. Mike, my credits, you raised your
Jesse,
hand.
when we were talking about this in our team meeting on Friday, Reed responded back to me with an email saying, "This is such an important topic. It'll take the entire show to discuss this." Unfortunately, we don't have that much time, so we'll take another 5 minutes before we complete up this segment. And you guys are always welcome to come back and bring more people in. That is where the awareness starts. Mike has got his hand raised. Mike, go ahead.
Good morning, Jesse. Good to see you, and thank you, Gail. Appreciate everything you're saying. It's so important. Let me put it this way. Let me ask you this question, Jesse. Is there any legislator that is helping you that has come out and said, "Come, I really want to help"? Anybody stepping forward, stepping up to the plate? Anybody?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. No, that's first one off the top of my head. There's so many, I'm not gonna be able to name them all. The first one, though, I can shout out is Senator Graciela Guzman. She's not only a champion in Springfield on this, but she's willing to meet with us outside of Springfield. She actually just had a Zoom meeting. I think it was last Tuesday. I can't even remember now, with early intervention providers and parents, and actually heard their story and shared her story as well. I'll give a special shout out to Representative Joyce Mason, who's a champion for early childhood education in general. Representative Mary Beth Canty, both on early intervention. She was also huge with creating the child tax credits, Department of Early Childhood. We have incredible legislative champions in Illinois on both sides, and it really makes me proud. And that's, again, why, frankly, it really makes me a little angry that we can't just make this less quiet, because that's the problem, guys. This is simply a quiet crisis. Because when people hear about this, when elected officials know about this, when they speak with Guy and other parents, they don't say no, because they understand that they can't. They understand that babies can't wait. And really, that's why this work is so vital. Having these stories collected is so vital. So again, guys, really, before we run out of time, I just want to make sure to say, if you know someone who has an early intervention story, if you have an early intervention story, positive, negative, whatever it is, please share it. Visit raiseillinois.org to share your story. Email me at jrojo@raiseillinois.org. Just reach out, because whatever you can share, I can guarantee it makes a difference. Because
Okay, let's keep it to the next 3 minutes to finish off, and each one of our panelists gets a question, and please keep your answer to 30 seconds. Let's start off with Reed. Reed, you got anything that you want to ask Jesse and Guy?
Okay, Jesse, I believe in the old adage that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Early intervention, I think, is that ounce of prevention. Am I right? Do we have much more expense if we delay it in the future when it comes to learning disabilities having to be dealt with, and just what costs more, cost today or the long-term costs?
I'm gonna let Guy answer that one because it's such an easy answer. Guy, please tell us.
Yeah, service delays during such a critical period mean that infants and toddlers with developmental delays or disabilities are far more likely to become school-age children with special needs and adults with more severe disabilities. A recent study found that over 40% of children who received timely early intervention services did not need special education by the time they reached kindergarten. And a failure to invest in early intervention costs all of us taxpayers far more in additional education and health expenses as adults and school-age children become bigger and their needs become bigger, and the developmental period, the brain elasticity becomes smaller, honestly. So for families like mine, a delay is not just in time, it's the risk and fear and lost opportunity during the most critical window of your child's life.
Well,
Thanks for validating what I
Chris has any questions. Chris, you want to jump in? Do you have anything to say on this? We got about a minute and a half. I keep watching the clock, folks, because I'm so sorry. This is radio, so we got to keep watching the clock on this thing.
So I'm just really impressed at your advocacy. I think you're correct. It's very, very important that we put babies and children first, pretty much before anything else, because the long-term problems, like you mentioned, Gaia, just increase, and there's more money being spent And it's better to be preventive than reaction afterwards. And so
100%.
thank you so much for your advocacy. And is there a website that people can go to get more information and to contact y'all?
Yes, of course. So first, thank you guys for having us on this show, for being able to share these stories, for being able to share exactly what Guy was talking about, how much money we can save from this. Heads up, one number she didn't really share that's huge here, guys. 42% of infants and toddlers who receive EI services in a timely manner do not end up needing special education by the time they reach kindergarten. That's how impactful this is. So
Wow.
if you want to share that statistic out there, if you want to contribute to this advocacy, please visit raisingillinois.org. Whether it's early intervention, economic security, childcare, so many other issues, we are really doing our best to bring people together to advocate and create a better tomorrow for every child in every community in this state.
You know what, Reed, you are so right. This topic will take an entire 2 hours.
Oh, you have us come back then, Mohammed. I got you.
To discuss this, but we'll get Sheila to give her impression and then finish off this segment. And one question that I have for you, Jesse, before Dr. White jumps in, what is your ask? How much are you asking the legislature for?
Yeah, of course. So right now, simple ask, $40 million. $40 million as a first step to increase funding for early intervention. It's not everything that we need, but we understand the world's on fire. We understand how difficult things are financially in our state right now. But that means even more need to prioritize our infants and toddlers and programs like this that'll save us money down the line. So
Absolutely.
$40 million for early intervention.
So Sheila, one final comment from you,
Yeah.
and we'll finish off this segment. We are way over time on this, and I can see Reed giving me that look like, hey, God.
I thank you so much, Guy, for being here today. This is a quiet storm. I do agree, but the word is storm. And when you focus on survival as a parent versus milestones, anyone, elected official or non-elected official, should see that it's a crisis situation. And most parents are just in the mode of getting through the day as a survival, not necessarily looking down the road at the milestones that it have to make. So thank you, Mohammed, for letting the lightning strike this storm on today, because this is a very serious topic that we needed to bring up today.
Yeah, and that is what we like to do, folks. And if you want to support the show, as you can see, we don't have corporate advertising over on the lightning strike. This is our hard-earned money and sweat and equity that we are putting into raising awareness about important issues for our citizens and for our country. And you can go to TLS Radio for the lightningstrikeradio.com. Become a subscriber. I mean, you can start off at as low as $10 a month to keep the show, bringing up topics like this. And thank you guys. Thank you both for attending us and bringing up this issue this morning. And if you want to stay on for the rest of the show, feel free to just keep your video off and listen in. In the second hour, we got Congresswoman Marie Newman coming in, and she is bringing in Dan Biss, who won the 9th District Congressional primary, as her guest. And there's a lot of things that we want to talk about with Dan. And also Andrew Herrera from Herrera Strategies is on with us this morning, and we were discussing a lot of things with Andrew also. This is our country, folks. We need to take it back. May Day was not just a day to celebrate labor. Labor runs this country. And we got to make sure that these 1% up in the top over there, they should understand that if we yank out the carpet from under their feet, they're going to fall flat on their face. And sometimes we need to do that. Reed, you wanted to talk about something very important today. What's on your mind? We got about
Yes, I do. Well, the
7
topic
minutes to bring you in.
Well, the topic we just talked about was very important, so I don't mind sharing my
Stay
slide
on,
with
Gay.
that. But I'll get right to the point because of time constraints. It's with a lot of sadness that I have to say this today. Regretfully, the prediction that I made on this show last September, that the Supreme Court was poised to render the Voting Rights Act of 1965 a dead letter, came to pass this week in the case of Louisiana versus Calais. Now, I was born during the Jim Crow era in America, back when there was a very small percentage of Black Americans who were allowed to even register to vote, which resulted in a lack of proportionate or equal representation in the Congress and in state houses across the nation for Blacks and other racial minorities. Then, in March of 1965, there was a group of Americans, Black and white, Jew and Gentile, Catholic and Protestant, who convened in Mississippi to engage in a march from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama, to protest denial of voting registration to Blacks. The first attempt of this march resulted in a brutal attack upon the participants by the Alabama state troopers as the demonstrators tried to cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Bones were broken, blood of protesters was shed by people like the late John Lewis. The incident came to be known as Bloody Sunday. National news media covered the scene, and images of brutality were flashed across TV screens and newspapers everywhere, shocking both the nation and even the world. Some supporters of the march had even been murdered. As a result of this, though, the Congress overwhelmingly passed the Voting Rights Act of 1965 in order to give effect and extend the franchise to all Americans, as the 14th and 15th Amendments to the Constitution had not done so sufficiently. Despite it containing a sunset provision, the law had been reissued 5 times by Congress, Mohammed, after construction and prior to passage of the Voting Rights Act of 65. Blacks had been systemically disenfranchised through various spurious means that did not ostensibly discriminate on the basis of race, although they had that impact. They used things such as literacy tests and property ownership as requirements to be able to register to vote. So now in 2013, this Supreme Court nullified Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act of 65 in the Shelby County case, which required that certain states with a history of racial discrimination get pre-clearances from the Department of Justice to change any registration requirement. The court predicated that ruling on what many considered to be a feigned naivete, that racial discrimination no longer exists. There was, according to Chief Justice John Roberts, who wrote the majority opinion that represented a 5-4 split along party lines, along the justices. He said that we don't have racial discrimination anymore, so Section 5 is no longer necessary. That ruling destroyed one half of the Voting Rights Act of 65, and Southern states immediately resumed making voter registration difficult for racial minorities and other marginalized people. Now, this week, the Supreme Court came back to finish the job when it ruled that Section 2 of the Act, which requires proportional representation of racial minorities when you configure voting districts to ensure equal representation, you can't do that anymore. The ruling now allows state legislatures to dilute racially monolithic voting blocks using partisan gerrymandering, so long as there is no blatant evidence of an explicit legislative intent to deny equal citizenship to racial minorities. In effect, the Supreme Court has held that the Confederacy won the Civil War and America is returning to the era of Jim Crow. The impact no longer matters. What's the purported intention must show that there was an explicit intention to racially discriminate. Otherwise, you can go ahead and racially gerrymander. So it just seems to me, Mohammed and team, that it's just simply not logical to preclude consideration of antipathy towards that's been directed at any specific racial group in designing mechanisms to ameliorate or neutralize the historical, institutional, and systemic racial discrimination that this country has endured for 400 years. Both this court and the current presidential administration have already engaged in far-right partisanship through elimination of affirmative action and DEI. Both of these were practical means to mitigate the socioeconomic damage that has been intentionally inflicted upon racial minorities for the course of the last 400 years. Now the Supreme Court has further aggravated that collective suffering by also dismantling the opportunities for racial minorities to participate in our democracy. Southern states like Florida and Louisiana are already feverishly redrawing their district maps and canceling primary elections so that they can disenfranchise racial minorities before the November general election, even when partisan gerrymandering is against their own state constitution, like in the case of Florida, or the primary voting is underway already, as in Louisiana. So folks, sadly, I have to report, free and fair elections are coming to an end in America.
Well, it's 9 o'clock, and I think the station will be taking a station break shortly. You're tuned into the Lightning Strike, folks. We are live on Facebook, and you can go back to our website later on and to our Facebook page also on Facebook, which is TLS Radio. We'll be posting the show over there. And get involved. That's all we can ask you is get involved. Don't sit on the sidelines. Go to our YouTube channel also. It's at TLS Radio. That is, everything is TLS Radio for the Lightning Strike. And do support the show, okay? So we can continue to bring you important information like this. Reed, thank you. Thank you so much. That was, again, a master class in what is happening in our country. How do we fight back? I mean, why don't we? I don't think there's an answer. Even if we increase the Supreme Court to 13, like some people have been suggesting, those people are going to be again partisan like what we have right now. I don't know. What is the solution, guys?
Well, in part, Mohammed, I would say that when we do get a new Congress, they need to start regulating the Supreme Court. And amongst the regulations, I think there needs to be term limits on them. Also, in the interim, I think the democratically controlled states have to fight fire with fire, and they have to do some partisan gerrymandering to counterbalance the gerrymandering that's going on in the red states as the immediate action that needs to be taken. Otherwise, we're going to have a minority controlled, when I mean minority, I mean a political minority controlling our Congress and controlling our state legislatures when they are not the majority. And this is supposed to be a democracy.
Well, let's see what Sheila has to say on this. Sheila, what's your take?
I'm just frustration over this whole thing. Reed had such a good point. He brought the hammer down and made it really plain and clear. There is still racial discrimination in this country. And the only people that don't see it is, unfortunately, the white males. I mean, I'm going to call a spade a spade. If you're white in this country, you don't feel any of the discrimination. Any person of color, most of them have felt some type of racial discrimination, whether it was through jobs or we were talking about earlier, early family intervention. There's so many levels and stories out there that people have not told, untold stories of the racial discrimination. People coming from another country that are Americans here now, they've seen it on different levels. And so for people to deny the fact that there is still racism in this country is abhorrent. I can't even fathom the fact that people think that America is great. America is not great. It has never been great for people of color. And I just have to say that because people have come here, blood, sweat, and tears. Immigrants have come here, blood, sweat, and tears as well, worked hard, and they're still being discriminated against in many areas, communities, schools, different, and don't even mention about the poor, coming here and trying to make it. So I think that with the Supreme Court, it's just hogwash. It's hogwash right now. They're trying to pull the wool over people's eyes. And this is something that is getting worse. It's not getting better because they're trying to reverse. Anytime you reverse and turn around and go back, that can't be a good thing for the progress that has been made over the last 50 years. And so, like I said, Reed brought it out. He made it plain, really simply clear. The lightning has struck on today's show with these subjects that we're talking about. Racial discrimination is alive and well, and it's being fueled by people that are not patriots, but people that are just hiding behind the sheets still, but they're not trying to they're not trying to be in the mirror, but they're still hiding behind the sheets with a lot of discrimination. Their ways, they may not be wearing the sheets, but their ways and the things that they're promoting and pushing, they're still behind the sheets. And I think you guys know what I'm talking about when I say behind the sheets. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, Reed, if I
that was
interject, Reed,
pertinent, Sheila. Mike, go ahead.
no, I'm sorry. Reed, you said that Congress can regulate the Supreme Court. How is that possible?
They can do term limits. They can legislate term limits.
So if Congress decides there's term limits and they pass it in Congress,
then they're going to be restricted to serving for only a certain term of years, and then they're gone. They can also mandate that they disclose their financial situation, mandate it, not just make it optional, which is right now it's only optional. And they can mandate that the Supreme Court justices have to comply with the same rules of Board of Rule of Ethics or Book of Ethics that they mandate on the lower federal court judges. Because the Supreme Court doesn't have to abide by the same laws that they impose upon federal district court judges and appellate court judges.
So the trick is to
remember the Supreme Court Justice Clarence, what is his last name again?
Thomas.
No,
Thomas.
on the tape.
Yes.
Clarence on the take. Okay.
Yeah, we have to hold our feet to the fire, like
Yeah.
Dr. White says. I mean, they aren't going to do anything unless we do that. And
Mike, I think not just hold their feet to the fire, we should light a fire under their robes.
There you go. There you go.
I'm talking about Congress. Congress, the way I hold people's feet to the fire in Congress is I just target them for extinction. You know, if these people, I'm tired of talking to them. If they don't get with the program, what the people want, then we just have to get rid of them. We got every 2 years we can do that. All right. So I've got targeted people here. You know the names. I will be naming names shortly. And we're going to get rid of them. We're sick and tired of these people doing nothing for us on any level. On any level.
You know, I think what they depend on, folks, is that people are so sick and tired of this mess that people have given up. You know, my vote does not make a difference. I'm not going to go out and vote. What difference does it make? They're all the same. No, they're not all the same. There are some good people who want to step up and do some good things in elected office. We just have to find them and support them.
Right.
And they make it so darn difficult for someone to really be a representative of the people that they get swept under the rug. We don't see them. And those are the gems that we have to find out and shine. Chris has been very quiet today. Chris, I don't hear you coming in on any of these things. Just because Dr. White said white people are to be responsible for this, Chris.
Well, I just hate to cough on air, and I never know when I'm going to start coughing because of I think it's whatever. But yes, this has been, I think, one of the better shows that we've had. Lots of engagement, lots of good ideas and opinions, and bringing things to the forefront that need to be talked about. And everybody has had such. I'm furiously writing down notes and quotes from what's been going on from our guests and the panel here. Reed, that was an excellent topic you brought up and what you had to say. I like what Dr. White had to say as well. And as that meme on Facebook says, there are days I'm embarrassed to be a white person. And I don't know what else to say. I was raised to treat people as people, and it just infuriates me and makes me disgusted to be a white person sometimes with the way, especially the Southern whites treat other people. Because
hey, Chris, don't beat yourself up on that, because at one time, when I first came in, I was classified as a white person by race. Can you believe that?
Yeah, you were honorary white.
Okay.
But no, Chris, that's why I wanted to point out that with the Sullivan and Montgomery march, that wasn't just black people that marched. Right. It wasn't just black people that got their heads cracked in. There were white folks there too.
Yes, there was. Yeah.
And right now we have a lot of people, regardless of the color, who are fighting for the right causes.
Yeah.
We don't have to really, put down things, folks. I'm waiting for Congresswoman Marie Newman to join us. I think I have time is short for Dan Base. I'll be the only one asking questions. So let's see what, Marie wants to ask Dan Base. So if you have any questions for Dan, hold them. We'll bring him back again in the future. His time is very short today. I'm waiting for both Marie and Dan to join us, and Marie is joining us right now. So, good morning, Marie.
She with us?
Yep, she is. She just joined.
Hello.
There she is. Good morning.
Good.
Good
How are
morning,
you?
Marie.
Hey, Marie.
How's it going?
So we got the full team today. We got
Wow.
Dr. White back on,
Yeah.
and we also have Andrew Herrera, who joined us from Herrera Strategies in the first hour. Very interesting conversations, especially with the HB 34. What is that bill again? 3436, the BDS bill that is being discussed. So we had a
2723, is it?
we had a nice conversation with Andrew. So HB 2723, that's what Andrew says. Marie, you're still waiting for Dan to join us, so I don't
Okay,
see
he's
him.
coming on at 9:14, I believe.
Okay, so we got about 3 minutes. Let me bring Andrew back up. Andrew, you want to join the conversation with Marie and give her some heads up as to what your concerns are that you wanted to discuss with Dan. And Dan's time is going to be very short, so we will just have Marie carry the conversation with Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Congresswoman, how you doing?
Hello.
Long time.
Okay.
Yeah, and we just had a quick question for the congressman-elect because he yesterday, I believe, or no, last Thursday, right before our subject matter hearing, actually came out in a very welcome move and said that if the vote were held today, he wouldn't have voted for the anti-BDS law that he voted for in 2015, and so just hoping that he could kind of shine some light as to how that passed. Like it passed. Not unanimously in the Senate. I think it was unanimous in the House, and there was some dissent in the Senate. But it moved so quickly and is a law that's kind of so sweeping. And if you could just kind of walk us through, like, how do we get here?
Yeah, I mean, from his perspective, I'm sure he can answer. As you know, he hasn't been in the state Senate for a very long time now. I'm sure he can talk about his evolved thinking. I'm not sure he can speak for the body.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's what we want to hear. And folks, if you have any questions, if you want to join the conversation, you can even text us at 773-763-9278 or 773-774-8585. You are tuned in to the Lightning Strike. We come every Sunday morning on WCPT 820 AM over here locally in the Chicagoland area and worldwide on the heartlandsignal.com website. On the internet, and you can go back and watch our shows on our YouTube channel, which is at TLS Radio on YouTube, and we do have our Facebook page also, which is again TLS Radio on Facebook. You can go back and watch all these shows. We usually edit them to take off some of the timing that we have in the beginning of the show. Then we talk about nonsense in the beginning before the guests join.
Hey, Mohammed, that telephone number, that was 773-774-8585.
Yeah, that's a new number.
Okay.
That WCPT has also for callers.
Yeah.
I think Mike remembers that number every Sunday morning. So
Exactly. I'm gonna get a little sign.
Okay. So Marie, what else is important in your mind that is happening in the country that we need to be aware of before Dan joins?
A couple of interesting things that, my segment is always called Ignore at Your Risk. And there's some things that get ignored sometimes that I think are like incredibly important. So, and I know Reed talked about this and he has expertise in this area because of his JD, but from a human perspective with the Voting Rights Act, VRA, there's such a trickle down effect on that on humanity when that happens. And I don't know if Reed completely covered this. He may have around the representation.
Well, let's can we come back and address that? I think Dan is joining us right now.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So I just want to be respectful of his time.
Yeah, no, appreciate that.
Yeah. So let's see. Good morning, Dan. How are you?
Very well. How are you?
Well, let me see if I can see you over here. I don't see you, so I can bring you up on the screen. But go ahead. Marie has got things loaded up for you. You
Loaded
better
up,
be
that's a
ready.
strong word.
If you can, please, if you want to, start your video or your camera, we can see you, or we can listen to you if you don't want to do that.
Oh, I didn't realize you wanted me on camera. I can move. Let me just give me a second to get to a place where I
Sure.
can be on camera.
I'll go ahead and introduce Congressman-elect Daniel Biss. He's actually the Democratic nominee, but in Illinois, because it's so incredibly blue, he will actually be Congressman-elect. So a little bit about Daniel Biss. Great news. Good to have you. It's good to see you, Daniel.
Good to be here.
Congressman-elect Daniel Biss started out as a math professor, right? And who doesn't love a good math professor?
Me. I don't love good math professors. Math is not my
Explain.
forte.
Oh my gosh, I will not, that's another long story, but I just believe that, logic stems from math. And so I would like to have a couple more logical people in Congress. And so I'm okay with him having a fabulous math background. But from there, he then became a state senator, also is the current Evanston mayor. And I do have a question about transition later on that. And then he, as we all know, he won the nomination for Democratic Party in Illinois 9 in the congressional race. So welcome.
Thank you so much. So good to see you.
Good to see you. So we have just a few things we wanted to go over with you. Big race. I saw this just happened, I think, yesterday or the day before, and it was very encouraging. As we all know, after big races like that, sometimes things get a little clashy and cranky, right? In every Democratic primary I've ever seen. So with that, but I saw something encouraging, and I've heard it from a couple of the people that ran in that race on MSN Now. I think it was on Friday. Kat Abogzala, your former opponent, came on and said, you know what, we're all kind of coming together. And I was thrilled to hear that, because I've heard you say that in spaces too, Daniel. So can you point to that a little bit and tell all of our friends across the nation that we can come together after a primary and it's all good?
Yeah, I mean, thank you for asking, Marie, because look, it was a pretty tough primary. It was, I think, hard emotionally for all of the candidates and maybe even many of our supporters. And hey, listen, I'm really clear with myself about this. I won with 30% of the vote, which means that 70% of the Democrats voted for one of the other 14 candidates. So I think I have a real responsibility to reach out. I've been reaching out to the candidates. I've had a chance to sit down one-on-one with many of them, and many of the rest of them are on my calendar for coming up. And the differences in the primary, I think, were important to all of us, but the similarities were pretty remarkable too. And in many respects, we were all trying to say that we were the right person to take on Trump, that we were the right person to make the Democratic Party fight harder, that we were the right person to advance a progressive agenda. And so it wasn't so much that we were, saying, hey, we believe in dramatically different things for what the Democratic Party ought to be. And because of that, I think there's a really important foundation that we can use to unite the party and then just be a part of fighting together to restore some sanity to this country.
Yeah. It's so true. And I hope you and your former colleagues in that race keep doing that great work, because I have to tell you, we can't be divided right now. So thank you for that. So taking an interesting turn back into your history, I think many in your district were excited to hear your perspective on repealing the anti-BDS law. And so I'm not asking you to speak for anyone but yourself, but just a little bit about your thinking. Like, how did you get from for voting for it to now supporting the reversal of it, which is terrific. But we're just more curious than anything else.
Yeah, thank you for asking. I do have on my Substack a little essay about it that folks who want to hear more are welcome to read. I think we've spent during the, I guess, 11 years now since that bill passed unanimously in, I guess, 2015. Mm-hmm. We've seen a lot. We've seen as the Trump administration has weaponized government to try to affect free speech. So I want to be clear about this. They also just illegally and unconstitutionally try to punish free speech and prohibit free speech. But they also use the leverage of government, like, for example, when they take away grants from universities that don't follow their lead on DEI, and when they try to punish law firms that represent clients they disagree with. They're basically trying to use the economic power of the government to discourage activism and just the expression of ideas, and that may not be unconstitutional, but I think it's dangerous. And so that's in my opinion kind of similar to what the Illinois law does. It doesn't prohibit BDS, but it says we're going to use the economic power of the state government through our pension investments to discourage an activity that we disagree with. And I just think government needs to be really, really, really careful. And I don't say that as someone, by the way, who agrees with BDS, but I say that as someone who thinks the government needs to be really, really careful in trying to influence the utilization of free speech, influence people's ability to use their own economic power to effectuate the outcomes in the world that they want to see happen. So, this is an issue that I've been struggling with ever since I took that vote back in 2011. And a lot of people have been asking me recently my opinion, and I just wanted to be transparent about the fact that, I would not today take the vote that I took 11 years ago.
Interesting. Well, great. And it's funny, whenever I ask a legislator that did vote for it, it's very different reason. Honestly, you have a different evolution than I thought you were going to have, but we all come back to free speech, right? And that's what binds us. So back to that thing that binds us. So Godspeed on that. Speaking of free speech, the war, some people are calling it the war of choice. I call it the war of bad choices.
Exactly.
So, so recently we saw a couple of your future colleagues vote with the Republicans on encouraging the war and encouraging the moving forward of allowing Trump to have kind of unlimited war powers. So against the War Powers Act, right, which
Yeah.
is already in place, but they were doing specific narrowcast vote. So it's Congressman Moskowitz and Gottheimer voted with the Republicans. First of all, I'll just ask you, how would you vote if you were in I know it's a hypothetical, but you are going to have to do it, so it's fair. So how would you vote
I would
on war
for sure
powers?
vote for a war powers resolution. I think this one is really, really, really not a close call at all. I think it is really monumentally dangerous for the Congress to abdicate its responsibility, even if you agree with this war, which, by the way, I don't know how you do that, but let's suppose you agree with this war. The idea that Congress should just sign on to, hey, the president gets to unilaterally declare war and we're going to abdicate congressional oversight, that is not how the Constitution is supposed to work. And I think it is a extremely dangerous precedent for the country. By the way, presidents of both parties for years now have been trying to expand presidential power, have been trying to essentially get around the plain intent of the Constitution, which is for Congress to have a role in these decisions. I think it's bad for the country and bad for the world. And so I would have, to me, that was an extremely easy vote.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. So interesting week. Current governor Janet Mills stepped down, right?
Yep.
Because she saw the numbers, and good on her for really realizing a few things. One is that she wasn't going to win the primary. Graham Plattner is heads and shoulders above her in the polls. She didn't have the money, and so continuing to drain the resources of the party in that state. Good on her for stepping down. This is interesting to me, and I'll be interested in your take. A lot of people have called for Schumer to step down from his leadership position, not step out of Congress, but his leadership position. And it's becoming increasingly apparent that he doesn't understand there's a new awakening in the US electorate and in every state electorate that people, whether you call it populism, progressivism, new guard, getting rid of the establishment, all of the things, how do you feel, A, about the fact that Schumer's made some bad choices with candidates, and then B, his current leadership and his efficacy? So share a little bit about that.
Well, I don't know if you noticed, my internet died, and so I was offline for a big chunk of the middle of that question.
I'm just
I
wondering
think,
about his efficacy, and what
yeah.
do you think about Schumer? Should he step down? from leadership, not from Congress, but from leadership.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a real need and a hunger in this country for a different attitude. And I think that, I think it's fair for us to just be really direct about the fact that Biden running for re-election was a big mistake that really, really hurt the country and the world and the Democratic Party deeply. And I think it's important for us to learn from that and learn that new approaches are important, and to learn that in a situation where you're choosing between a career politician who is in her, I think, late 70s and is going to have a really hard time persuading the electorate of the idea that, hey, listen, I'm able to think differently. I'm going to be part of turning the page. I'm going to be a part of a group to usher in a different attitude in the Democratic Party versus somebody who's really outside the box and may have some, aspects in his bio that are hard for some people to swallow. That shouldn't be a tough choice. Shouldn't be a tough choice. And I think it's important for the leadership in the Democratic Party to just stand up and say, listen, we have a lot of good ideas. We have good positions on a lot of the issues. We have not put together a package that has convinced the American people that we're actually fighting for them. And it is time for us to think differently about what it takes to assemble that package. I'm obviously running for the House and not the Senate. And so, not thinking deeply about the question of Senate leadership, except for as a guy who reads the news. But, I'll say that I have not seen Chuck Schumer demonstrate that. And that is, I think, not been helpful to the Senate Democratic Caucus or the party.
So do you think new blood is needed in that spot in Senate leadership?
I mean, that's my instinct, certainly. Again, if I were running for the Senate, I would have a whole position on it. I'm just a guy who reads the newspaper here relative to Senate leadership decisions. But yeah, that's my instinct. Absolutely.
Well, just FYI, you're not going to get away with that once you get there. Just get ready for that. And then Jeffries, what are your instincts right now? Are you thinking that he's representing the new electorate, or is he thinking, 2006-ish?
Yeah, I think he's been much better than Schumer. I've had good discussions with him so far. I look forward to continuing those discussions. And I took some heat during the primary for not committing, to vote against or for Jeffries. I think that was the right choice. And it was not a politically popular choice, but I think my job is to say, I'm going to get to know the options and choose the best option in front of me, not just sort of knee-jerk say, like, it would have been really popular to say, oh, I'm voting against Jeffries no matter what. And then maybe Jeffries would have been the best candidate, and then I would have put myself in a box to do the wrong thing. So I'm going to continue to keep an open mind and listen and watch. But I think it's really important that the party reforms and changes. And, an astonishing amount of the country does not see the Democratic Party as fighting for them.
Right.
And if we can't fix that, God help us.
Right. 100%. So much, I did a Substack on this maybe 10 months ago about all the things we'll have to reverse once we get in, because there's been so much trauma inflicted upon the federal government, cutting out whole agencies, USAID, reducing healthcare access to 30 million Americans. Everybody's insurance has gone up. What do you think will be, if you had to choose a top 3 reversal items? And you'll be voting with the body, but if you were putting your 2 cents in the caucus meeting on Monday morning, what would be the top reversals you do day one in 2027?
Healthcare, taxes, immigration.
Yeah.
No question. I mean, the healthcare cuts are brutal. The tax cuts for the wealthy are deranged, and the immigration policies have been so cruel and vicious and un-American, it's not hard to even articulate them.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Okay. Well, that was easy. I think you've answered that one before.
Well, I was thinking as you asked, I was like, is she going to say 1 or 2 or 3? Because if you had me pick, less than 3 of those, that would have been tougher. But you gave me 3, and so I felt like it was a pretty clear choice.
Well, Dan just messaged everyone that he has to go, and you see that he's all dressed up, and I'm pretty sure that he's got somewhere to go. So
yeah, and I'm sorry. I thought when Marie texted, I thought it was 5 to 10, and so I only booked 10 minutes, and I'm running off to another event. I apologize if there's a miscommunication.
No worries.
There.
We'll have you back again. Thank you so much for coming, Congressman-elect.
Thank you. I really appreciate you.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you again, and thank you, Marie, and thank you, Dan, for joining us. We'll definitely want him back. Once he is in Congress, we are going to hold his feet to the fire, like the panel has been saying all morning today. Okay. And as far as the Supreme Court is concerned, we need to light a fire under those robes. We can't hold their feet to the fire. I mean, they're so out of shape, most of them. It'll be difficult to pick them up and put a light or fire under their feet. We got Maria Muzaffar joining us. Good morning, Maria.
Good morning. It's a shame that Congressman-elect had to leave, but I think I think the one thing that he stated that I hope that we expound on, Marie, is when he stated that I'm someone just reading the news on the position of the Senate. You are correct. No one's going to get away with that. So we're
Right.
going to have him on and have him expand on that. But it was a wonderful conversation. I was
Although,
listening
and
to.
let me say this because, and I'm not defending Daniel or not defending him. So in other words, this is just a truism. Being a newbie into Congress is that you think I did this. You think you can get away with not being aware of everything. When you get to Congress, you have to be aware of everything. So Mari is right, is that he may be forced to make some decisions when he gets there. He will be because he's going to have to vote for Jeffries or not vote for Jeffries, whoever is in the field. But I also will say it's not A, unheard of, or B, not smart, right? He does have to see who's running. And honestly, I have not heard of anybody putting their hat in the ring.
Yeah.
And you start hearing that by now. So we do have a problem. So part of the electorate's job is to say, okay, we would like these 7 other folks in the Democratic caucus in Congress to run for Speaker of the House too. So he doesn't have a choice to make right now because there is nobody else. So it's not dumb to say, hey, I have to wait to see who's running. So there's that.
Yeah, of course. No, I was not addressing his intelligence or his but more his strategy, the strategy that we are going to have to see, because at the end of the day, unfortunately, to the electorate, it does become a monolith, right? And so like you have to have a stake on what everybody else in your party will be doing and the moves that you're making, because you will be aligned with them whether you like it or not, which I think was his
You have to make
message.
choices, and you have to have
We have to
decisions
make
and
choices and
yeah, you have to have
and
decisions.
simplify it. I mean, this is the thing. It's like the simplified process of understanding how these bodies work really means that people see you as a block. So that's what I mean about we won't be able to get away with that. No candidate can get away with that. They're going to be asked really tough questions right now. And this was not a tough one, but I think in general, this is what we're seeing is that which he echoed, and I agree with him wholeheartedly, that people are so devastated by the strategy and the positioning of the Democratic Party in this time that people want to have very strong assertive responses, right? And we should demand that definitely and encourage that. So I don't know if he had a chance to speak about the Voting Rights Act, but
Well,
it's been
that's what I
tough.
wanted to bring up to both of you, because Reed
Yeah.
had a master class on that in the first hour.
Yep. Thank
as
you,
to
Reed.
what the
Well,
Supreme Court has been doing. And
Yeah.
Maria, if you just
Yeah.
wanted to focus on that as to breaking the echo chamber on your segment, we can talk about that and have a great
Yeah.
discussion on this. It's been very good today. We had a couple of good guests in the first hour, and we talked about early intervention, and we had actually a parent who had a preemie child that was impacted by early intervention and what the cost is going to be for us. A lot of important topics discussed today. So, folks,
Yeah.
you can go
Yeah.
back to our website or our YouTube channel at TLS Radio after today. Like by tomorrow morning, we should have the show posted over there to please follow up on what's happening. Go ahead, Maria.
Yeah, I mean, I think substantively, if Reed already gave the masterclass in Section 5 and Section 2, which are the two critical things that we need to look at right now. I mean, the question is breaking the echo chamber on the Voting Rights Act, right? It's do you value the power of your vote, number one. Number two, is voting a privilege or is voting a right? And I think what we see with the Supreme Court's decision is that we're trying to create this phenomenal notion in our democracy that voting is a privilege. And I think we need to frame it in those terms because, first, the right of the federal papers or federal documentation of citizenship is being thrown around. But more importantly, is there intentional racial discrimination in a district? And the burden on that, and Marie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the burden on that is not very easy to prove. And I think that is the whole purpose of this, right? You put all of the burden on the community that feels discriminated. Well, the process of being discriminated is not an overnight process. It's little by little, show an additional proof of identification. How long have you lived here? Have you filed this, the form properly? These are little checks and balances that are put in. People think for the purpose of creating a process that is lock-proof, but it's also a process that is lock-proof to make sure that individuals that need to be shut out of the system are shut out. It's intimidating, it creates unnecessary obstacles, and it shuts out voters. And so is voting a privilege or is voting a right? And I think that that is the question that we have right now. And if you see, throughout history, unfortunately, if you look at what has happened in the South, there has been so many steps and measures to be able to remedy the situation of intentional discrimination. And I think that now when we see the argument that you have to show proof of intentional discrimination, it kind of turns the whole Section 2 upside down. And I think that is the purpose. So we have to go back to why the Voting Rights Act was created, was specifically for these reasons, that you put all the burden on the individuals that are being discriminated, that are already being given less resources and less access and less processes to be able to meet the threshold that you're arbitrarily creating. So I think right now for Republicans and Democrats, that's the question they have to answer.
Yeah. It's very interesting to me because I drew the analogy on my Substack between voting rights and Roe v. Wade, and it was the same exact process that you just articulated, Maria. It's chipping at each of the little pieces, and all of a sudden there's nothing left except a skeleton. And the skeleton doesn't matter because the skeleton can't move, right? So that's where we're at. So that is and I'm sure Reed shared that too in his analysis, is that we got to stop the chipping away. Got to stop it.
So let's bring Reed back in and see what he has to say. Reed, you got any thing that you want to add on to what Maria and Maria are saying?
Oh, they are dead on. It's been incremental. The chipping away at the equal citizenship, if you will, of Black and other racial minorities in this country. And I mentioned before how they did away with affirmative action, saying that it's some kind of discrimination against white people, which I would not characterize it that way, but that's what the court chose to do. Now they're attacking DEI. Now with them basically making Voting Rights Act of 65, a dead letter law, they've taken away equal opportunity for representation in state legislatures and Congress. So they're just chipping. We've gone back to the Jim Crow era of America. It hasn't taken effect just yet, but it's going to if this continues on. So go ahead.
Reed, I 100% agree with you. And I think, we have to look at analyze the intent of the individuals. I'm not naming them deliberately because the intent could lay anywhere in the decision makers and the constituents. So that's what we need to speak to. It's like you look at these measures that have been put in place for the last 50 years, 50, 60 years to be able to remove the misguided steps of a multiracial, multi-ethnic, multicultural America, right? Because we agreed that that was the intention of the country. We understood that. We saw it as an asset. When we saw the immigration in 1960, the immigration of individuals coming from different parts of the world and contributing to our country, we saw this as an asset. Now what has happened, and we see this, and this is why I bring this theme up again and again, because we can see this with the Voting Rights Act. What has happened is that demographic change has made certain people feel that they're getting left behind. So how do you address getting left behind? And I answered this question. I did a talk a few years ago in Dixon, Illinois, and we talked about how blaming the immigrants and blaming the people that are taking jobs is not a narrative that we need to buy into for the following reasons. I said to them, go into any after school tutoring program center across your state. And I say this quite boldly. Go to any after school, such as iLevel, such as Kumon, okay? Go to these after school programs. You will see who is sitting in those chairs. These are immigrant kids going to after school ACT, SAT prep, AP physics tutoring. These are kids across the board. Okay. And they are then investing in their academics, and they're not coming from money. This illusion that they're all of them are, coming from money. They have prioritized education and development coming from their households. Then they go into higher level degrees. Then they go into professional degrees, postdoctorate degrees, and they're running hospital centers, becoming neurosurgeons and orthodontists. These people are not taking jobs. They are creating a pathway for excellence for their families and for society, right? Serving patients. And so no one is getting left behind. There are not processes and solutions for individuals to compete equally only if there's a lack of funds and if there's a lack of priority from the family unit. And I think these two things are what need to be discussed. It's not the demographic change that scares people. It's the fact that they are being told that they're getting left behind deliberately. So they have to chip away at the protections of individuals so people can leave the country. And I think that is the biggest fallacy that we are seeing. That's the biggest lie that's being sold, right? And I do think that there's a big argument on why are public schools not performing the way that they are. Well, the masses of the populations are not getting the adequate tools that they need to not get left behind. It doesn't matter what race. It doesn't matter what race you are. It just happens to be that there's certain communities and certain cultures that said, hey, we're not going to get left behind. We're going to double down. We're going to make sure the system doesn't leave us behind, and we're going to do this. And I think that reality, that awakening of that reality is necessary. So when you look at the change in demographics and the fear that we're getting left behind based on the fact that we're a certain race or a certain culture, we need to look at how other cultures are pushing themselves, how they're promoting themselves academically by substantive hard work, not just freebies, but substantive hard work. And then look at chipping away at Voting Rights Act as an example of making people feel uncomfortable enough to feel that you don't belong in this country, to satisfy this lie that's been sold that you're going to get left behind because people are taking your jobs and people are taking your positions, right? And I think that's a necessary analysis, because this is where this all comes from: how to shut people out so we don't get shut out. And the biggest mistake is when we as a society don't give resources through public policy and through funding, instead of spending money on wars, to make sure everybody has equal access and can sit in those tutoring after school programs and can get caught in 3rd or 4th grade when they're not developing properly, and have the access and the teachers to be able to give them what they need, right? Everyone needs a fair shot. We don't have a fair shot, so we need to blame someone. And it's a false narrative that I think needs to be countered wholeheartedly.
Thank you, Maria. That's a perfect analysis of what's happening in the country, folks. The harder you work, regardless of what your race is, okay, if you put in the work, you will benefit, okay? And that's something that we need to be aware of, folks. Let's not continue on the path of somebody is less than us because they come from a certain race.
Yeah.
I have some of the, some of my best friends who are, regardless of their race, are very successful. And Reed has got a question, and then we got our person of the week, Dr. Renata Watson, joining us. Reed, so if you can please go ahead and get your question in, and then we'll bring Dr. Watson in.
Well, it's not so much a question as a comment. I think that what Mariah is saying is correct, except I think that the real mentality is that white folks who are of lower income or more modest economic means they think they're being displaced in America
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
people of color,
Yes.
which is
Yes.
not the case. They're not being displaced. And that's a mythology in this country. I think that the harder you work, you're going to get rewarded, because that's been what's been told to African Americans for generations and generations and generations. And it has become almost a hackneyed phrase to say that in the Black community, that Black folks have got to be twice as good to get half as far as white people in this country. That has been empirically true. So we're talking about equal opportunities here, and we do have finite resources, but it doesn't mean that one group is going to benefit at the expense of another. But that's what I'm afraid that a lot of white folks in this country are thinking, that they're being displaced, that the gains of Black people is at their expense. When they don't seem to understand historically that a lot of the benefits they've had actually came down to them as a legacy from their white ancestors who ripped the wealth away from the Black people that made it for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And Reed, one major phrase that you just said, because of finite resources. And that is the issue. We do not have a lack of resources. We are just misusing our resources.
Yeah, exactly. We have our guest.
I muted myself to cough, Chris, like what you do. And want to bring in, welcome Dr. Renetta Watson to the Lightning Strike. Good morning.
Morning. And thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. You are Dr. White's guest, so we'll let Dr. White introduce you and see where we are going with the show today.
Yes, welcome again, Dr. Renetta. She's our returning guest, and she has something really, really interesting that's going to be happening. It's a tour that's going to be going on. And a lot of the things that we talked about today, the lightning definitely was striking today in Chicago and around the world with this broadcast today. But she has a really great training, therapy, coaching, and AI. And Dr. Renetta, can you tell a little bit of who you are and how can a person rewrite their story and win? Because a lot of people are in turmoil today. Go ahead, Dr. Watson.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Well, again, my name is Dr. Renetta Watson, and a little bit about me. I am a counselor. I am an author. I am an entrepreneur. I am a minister and preacher of the gospel. I'm known as the equiper. And what I say is I give you the tools to help you turn your next into now. And that's pretty much a little bit about me. Before I get started, I want to give just a real quick shout out to a few people and say thank you. I want to it is Sunday, so I have to thank my leaders and my bishops for allowing me to be here. So I want to say thank you to Bishop Dr. Michael Bates Sr. and Bishop Dr. Alfred Brown for allowing me to take this moment and to be here, and thank my family and my Church of Jesus Christ North family. If you're in the St. Louis area, come visit us, 501 North Hills Drive. Now, how can people rewrite their story? Listen.
Yeah.
First of all, you have to realize that you have a story. And so I want to start by letting you know, if you are listening, it doesn't matter what you are, where you are, what you think you are, who you are, or where you have been. I want you to know that your life matters, your story matters, and there are people out there who need you. You are needed. You are the answers to somebody's problem. You are the answers to somebody's prayer. So I want to start there. You got to know that you have a story so you can rewrite your story. So one of the things that we are doing to help people rewrite their story, we realize that there are people out there who just feel defeated. There are people out there dealing with real issues, depression, anxiety, loss of hope, lack of resources. There are real issues and they are facing them. So what we have done is we have put together what we call the Victory Tour. And the Victory Tour is a collective of people that are coming in, going into cities, and we are helping people to rewrite their story. We're helping them to get victory in various areas. And so this is not just a team of ministers or preachers or teachers. This is licensed therapists, certified counselors that are coming in, going into cities, saying, hey, come. Let us help you. Let us train you. Let us help you live victoriously.
You know, it's so important because there's so much going on today. The show today had a lot of hot topics, I'll say. And everyone does have a story. When you talk about this particular tour, you're also integrating AI into this. Talk a little bit about that because that's so important. And a lot of people are using this module to change their life in a lot of ways and their businesses. So talk about that component of this particular tour that you're doing.
So when it comes to AI, I believe that there's a lot of misunderstanding, but also a lot of misuse. AI can be a wonderful tool if you use it and when used in the correct way. And so one of the things that we're doing is say, hey, how can you leverage and use AI to help you in ministry, to help you in business? How can you use it the correct way? So that's the goal, is to say, hey, so if you're an author, you don't necessarily want AI to write the book. You want to write, you want it to be you, but you use AI as a tool, as an assistant, as opposed to using it for the whole thing and taking a shortcut. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And we have such a distinguished panel with us on today. If there's anyone that has questions for Dr. Renetta about this victory tour, the coaching, the therapy, the AI, all of these things that they're trying to integrate to help individuals to come out of the darkness clouds that they may be in, feel free. I know that Muhammad is like a doctor himself. He does so much. He has multiple trainings, multiple degrees. He's a very humble man. And we have Congressman Marie with us and a lot of other distinguished guests. Is there any questions that any of our distinguished panel have for Dr. Renetta on this tour?
Well, let me get started on this. As far as using AI is concerned, most of you folks don't know, but my basic business is the Center for Strategic Solutions. Okay. And we focus more on workforce and economic development. And part of that, in 2016, when I started the company, we started off as a corporation. And I had a lot of workshops that I had done on getting people back into the workforce. Okay. Goal setting, interviewing, job search techniques, resume writing. About 24,000 people had attended those workshops. And this was going back to when I was the Director of Business Employer Solutions, Corporate Relations at the Illinois WorkNet Center also. So now, 2026, I'm taking a look at those workshops that I had conducted. And I went into AI and basically went into Claude and said, hey, Claude, go back and scrape out everything that I had done from 2008 to now and update that information to where we are looking at the latest trends and latest things that are happening in the employment field. It took about maybe less than 5 minutes.
Wow.
And it scraped up. I had a workshop with 133 slides in it. Okay. It scraped up everything, came back to me with 39 slides with updated information as to how can people find a job in today's market.
Absolutely.
Phenomenal. So using AI for the right reasons is going to be extremely important for us. Let's not be afraid of technology, folks. And I'll give the floor to Marie and Reed and Chris and Mike. We got about 7 minutes to finish up the show, and Maria is still with us. So let's continue the conversation.
So I just would like to know the Victory Tour. When is it taking place? Where's the next location that the tour will be hitting? And so just tell us a little bit about, where the tour is going to be starting and things like that, because this is going to be coming up very soon.
Yes, absolutely. So the Victory Tour is kicking off in my hometown of Peoria, Illinois, and that is going to be June 25th through 28th. Let me tell you a little bit about when we go into the cities, exactly what it is that we're doing. So that Thursday night, we're going to be attending and going in and helping a actual recovery group. So those of you in cities, if you have recovery groups, Celebrate Recovery, this particular one is called PH Connection, but we're going in with the therapists and with the counselors and the chaplains. We're going in and we're going to share with that recovery group. That's that Thursday. Then that Friday, we're going to stop and we're going to have a leadership session. We're going to meet with the leaders of the city. We're going to meet with the pastors. We're going to meet with leaders. And we're going to do two things. We're going to give them some tools and strategy to help people deal with what we call giants. So the Victory Tour is based off of my most recent book, Crushing the Giants. And it's so many giants, we had to do 2 volumes, and there's probably going to be a volume 3. So we deal with everything from rejection to trauma to overeating to addiction to self-esteem to pride to anger to religion. To there are so many giants. So we deal with all the giants. We give you tools and strategy. So that Friday, we go in, we meet with the leaders. We're going to give them tools to help people, to help the people that they lead and people that they deal with, the people in their businesses. But then we're also going to take a moment to do what most leaders never do. This is how you deal with your giants. So you got to acknowledge what you deal with, and you've got to deal with that. Then that evening, we're inviting creatives, those in arts and entertainment, to come in and just express your gifts. Show us what you're working with. Show us what you
So
got.
how can people find out more information about this? Is there a website that people can go to, Dr. Watson?
Yes.
We're short on time, so.
Yes, you can go to crushingthegiants.com. crushingthegiants.com. You can also go to my website, drrenettaswatson.com. You can text the word tour to 314-312-3448.
Well, thank you so much, folks. It's about 9:56. We got 4 minutes to finish off the show. And thank you to all our guests for attending the show and sharing their information with us. Marie, what's happening on the 8th again? If you want to just remind people what's happening in Springfield on the 8th.
Oh, there's a lobby day where you can lobby for multiple topics, but the gun reform movement specifically is asking folks to go down and lobby for the Rifle Act, which puts the onus and the responsibility on manufacturers on when gun deaths occur relevant to their products. So go down to, anybody can go, you can get with any group, Moms Demand Action, Safe Illinois, all of them, and head down there with them.
Marie, do you have any information? I believe on the Rifle Act, there was going to be a bus going from Chicago. Any further information?
Yeah, go to safeillinois.org and they'll share those logistics, or just Google it, folks. Just Google Safe Illinois and then it'll pop up right away.
Well, so important, folks, to go and get your voice, be heard over there in Springfield. And then go ahead, please.
Yeah, and I wanted to add for individuals that do not belong to a group, that are not used to lobbying or don't have these relationships. I just wanted to give a heads up, like a strategy plan for you, right? So you've been listening to this show and you've been watching the headlines and you have some opinions and you don't know how to move the needle and make your mark and make your opinion known. So Congresswoman Marie is right. Anybody can go down there. It's lobby day. So what would be really, really important is for you to identify what your top 3 issues are and identify if there's any organizations that are going down there on that day, contact them and see if you can join them. But also you as yourself can create an opinion piece, a 1-pager for yourself, contact and find out who your local representative in the House or the Senate are, and call them and say, I want to come down to Springfield on lobby day and I want to have a conversation. And I just want to encourage this because people feel like they have to have these powerful organizations behind them. They have to be part of a lobby group. Sometimes it's very, very sincerely inspiring when you see someone walk into your office and you're an elected official and someone walks into your office and say, listen, this is really bothering me. And these are the issues that I have that are concerning. And this is how I've addressed the issue. How are you responding? And you'd be surprised. Elected officials go in and out of meetings, but many times you'll find them just coming in, taking a break, or sitting at their desk, and they're legislative director or the chiefs of staff will meet with you. So if you feel that there's any gap between you and an elected official, a lobby day is a beautiful day to say, as a citizen, as a resident, I'm here with my little folder with my documents in it of stuff that I've researched and printed at my house, and I want to talk to you about it. Just start there and you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised how much you can communicate and make an impact. So I would encourage anyone to take part.
Thank you, Maria. It's 9:59, folks. We'll be ending in about 60 seconds. And thank you, Marie, for bringing Dan Biss onto the show. We've been trying to get him on for a while now. And next time, if we can have some more time with these elected officials, that would be great. That's a common thing that I've been seeing in the chat room. Morgan Coghill actually wanted to talk to Dan about doing an analysis on the 2024 elections or something like that. He had a note in the chat room. So,
I
folks,
think he wanted to ask about would the autopsy report from the DNC be offered? He
right.
wouldn't. I mean, that question is a very, very good question, but
I know.
Daniel has no control over that right now, so he wouldn't be able to have an opinion on it. So
Yeah, I'm glad that's why we did not address it, folks. It's 10 o'clock. We'll be finishing the I'm stumbling and tumbling over my tongue now. Okay, we'll be finishing the show for today. Do join us next week, same place, same time. WCPT 8 to 10 a.m. on 8:20 a.m. WCPT, and go to our website tlsradio.com. Please subscribe and support the show so we can keep this thing ad-free as much as possible, especially we're not going to be taking corporate advertising. We do have a brochure that Chris helped me create that three-part brochure that we'll be sending out shortly to everybody if they want to support the show. Again, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in to WCPT Sunday Mornings. We'll see you again next week. Thank you to all our guests and our panelists today.
Thank you.
Hey, bye guys.